Welcome back to another episode of Jimmy's Three Things. If you couldn't tell by the face on your screen and the voice you're hearing, I am not Jimmy. Jimmy is taking a well-deserved vacation. I'm going to fill in for him this week. And I jumped at the opportunity because I think the concept of this show is very cool. So me and my good friend Dalton Feely, our head researcher at Jomboy Media, picked out three interesting topics. I want to thank Workhouse Media and Dan Patrick Productions for working with Jomboy Media to bring you this show. And the first topic is one that I specialize in if you watch a lot of my YouTube content. So I thought, why not go there first? And that's trades. It's the best time of the year for someone like me. I'm a big fan of trades as a concept in terms of content because I think it's a very unique thing in sports. So, the idea of trading people as assets is very strange, but it happens a ton in baseball. And we have pretty much the most notable trade deadline of any sport. So I thought I would highlight not only just the guys that I think will be traded, because that felt a little flat as a topic. I mean, you can think of guys right off the top of your head. Jack Flaherty, David Robertson gets traded pretty much every year. I wanted to look at the best value signings that were made by teams that almost seemed like, by design, they were made to be traded. So I limited the signings that are eligible to be on this list to $5 million and under, because you guys know this, in free agency, it's pretty hard to sign a quality player for anything less than like $10 million. And I have a list of a lot of guys here, a lot of relievers, because relievers you can sign for a little bit less money. But a lot of guys here that are having terrific seasons that will most likely be traded. And if they're not traded, what is you doing, baby, to those teams that decided to hold on to them? I actually want to start with the Washington Nationals because they are one of the more interesting teams. They're 47-53, which is 6 games under 500, 4.5 games out of the wild card. There is a world where the Nationals keep all their assets and maybe buy something and try and go for a spot. I personally don't think that's going to happen because they've been rebuilding for a little bit. And a lot of the ways that they built their team this year was around one-year deals that almost make it seem like they're designed to be traded. And I want to talk about a handful of guys on the Washington Nationals, specifically in their bullpen, because right now their bullpen has looked very, very good. They have 3 guys at the back end, and Kyle Finnegan, who's just a late add to the All-Star game. I think like the day before they told him, hey, get to Texas, we need you. He's got 28 saves. I don't think he qualifies for our list here because he has multiple years of control. He's been on the block for a while. He's more established. I want to talk about these 2 other guys, Derek Law and Dylan Floro. Not really household names by any means. Derek Law, this season is having, I think, the best season of his career. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see his prior stats here. Last year, he pitched 55 innings for the Reds with a 3.60 ERA, a whip that's not too favorable at 1.38. This year, he's been, marginally better on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal with the Nationals. There were relievers that signed for a lot more money, and the Nationals have been getting the bang for their buck, a 1.25 ERA plus from Law. That means he's 25% better than the league average ERA. He's been in the league for 8 years, and he's never really demonstrated this level of quality pitching since his rookie year, all the way back in 2016 with the Giants. The other guy, Dylan Floro, is a very unique case because he's having a career year of sorts. He's had great years in the past. 49 innings with a 2.02 ERA, and a 198 ERA plus. So he's been almost 100% better than league average ERAs. He only signed for $0.75 million more. So the Nationals got both of these guys for less than $4 million combined. And they're going to be pretty good trade assets because what team doesn't need bullpen? One thing I did find funny, both these guys have tossed 48 games this year, which is a lot, especially at the halfway mark of the season. That puts them on pace for about 80 games pitched on the year. 48 games apiece. That's 5th and 6th, or I guess tied for 5th, both in the National League, or in all of baseball, excuse me. So yeah, not great usage there. And I mean, the manager kind of just running them out whenever he needs. But the Nationals bullpen has been a big plus for them. And good on the Nats front office for kind of recognizing some relief talent out there when, a lot of teams pay a lot more money for lesser quality arms. So I'm sure the Nationals will be shopping those guys because why wouldn't you? It's not going to cost you much of anything. And who knows, maybe you can get him back in the offseason for something better. Staying on the Washington Nationals. Joe, I'm recording Jimmy's Three Things. I need you to vacate the room. I'm sorry. Jesse Winker is a pretty obvious one. And I raised an eyebrow when he was signed initially because he was coming off a really tough year in Milwaukee where he hit 1 home run in 61 games, which is not what you order when you sign Jesse Winker. You sign him for the guy you saw in 2021 who had 24 home runs. He had a 949 OPS that year when he was an all-star. So when the Nats brought him on, they brought on guys like Nick Senzel too, guys that kind of lost their prospect luster and were looking for, a second chance or a third chance. They signed Winker for $2 million. So now you're talking about 3 legitimate great trade assets that all in combined are less than $6 million of payroll on the Nationals roster. And right now, Winker, he's got 11 home runs. He's got an 813 OPS. He's been great this year. The crazy thing with him, and in this whole new wave of, bigger bases and pickoff attempt rules, is that Jesse Winker, who had 3 stolen bases entering the year, has 14. And it's not like he's getting caught a lot either. He's 14 for 18 on the year stealing bases. So not only is he this guy that traditionally has been identified as a good slugger, but now he's a stolen base threat as well. So he adds another dimension to his game. The Nationals as a team run like crazy. They don't run very efficiently, but they're a team that is not afraid to steal a base at all. In fact, I'm going to give you their ranking right now as a team. Right now, they're third in stolen bases with 135, just 1 behind the Milwaukee Brewers and just 8 behind the Cincinnati Reds. So third in the National League, but also third in baseball. A lot of that comes off of guys like CJ Abrams, but how about Jesse Winker contributing 14 stolen bases to the cause? All the while, his sprint speed is in the 18th percentile. So maybe we have gone too far in the stolen base rule. Who knows? Or maybe the Nationals coaching staff has cracked the code on how to steal bases with efficiency for guys like Jesse Winker. So that's another guy I expect to be traded because it's a different world than a middle relief arm. You're talking about a corner outfielder with pop and stolen base potential who's having a resurgent season at age 30 on a 1-year deal worth only $2 million. So shout out to the Nationals, a team that's kind of built to sell like my own Mets, except the Mets, I think they're in playoff positions. They're kind of in a weird spot with that. The Nationals, I think, perfect excuse to sell. So why wouldn't you, instead of trying to compete in such a crowded National League, take advantage of the market. It's a seller's market after all. Speaking of taking advantage of the market, the Texas Rangers are also kind of in a weird spot because they won the World Series last year. If you didn't know that, you might have not been watching baseball in 2023, and you're here now and wondering, this is the team that won the World Series? Because as it stands, I believe they're 5 games under 500, 6 games out of their division, 7.5 out of the wild card right now, 48 and 52, so 4 games under. They have a lot of players on their payroll, a lot of expensive players. They have $1 billion middle infield. They have expensive starting pitchers. That is not the focus of this here segment. The focus is a guy that was a late signing for them. And his name is Michael Lorenzen. He was traded last year to the Philadelphia Phillies, where he wasn't exceptional, but he did throw a no-hitter, and that was kind of his big Phillies highlight. Leading up to that, he was an all-star for the Detroit Tigers, 18 games started, a 3.58 ERA. He's having basically the same first half this year. 17 starts, a 3.53 ERA, a 1.12 ERA plus, which makes him 12% better than league average. And he helped kind of defeat the narrative of the slow start a little bit because Snell and Montgomery were guys that held out for big contracts. They didn't get them, and they've had tough years so far. Lorenzen was a pretty late signing too. I think he signed a little bit earlier than both those guys, but he's been terrific. He's been, the best starter in Texas's rotation, which is not something that was on my bingo card going into this year with guys like Andrew Heaney on the roster, Nate Eovaldi, John Gray. It's been Lorenzen that's been, pretty efficient for them. And I think the Rangers would be wise to trade him. Obviously, they can keep their assets and try and go for it. There's a lane there. There's talent there. But Lorenzen signed a 1-year, $4.5 million contract. And while that is more money, this is a starting pitcher we're talking about. This is a guy that you can get a really good return for, who's only going to be pitching for his new team for 2 months. Last year, when Philly traded for him, he made 7 starts in the second half for them, 47 innings pitched. That's the amount of sample that you're trading away here. And the value there is pretty awesome. So shout out to Michael Lorenzen for having another great year at age 32. Hopefully he gets a longer term contract, because I think at this point he's become a pretty reliable major league option. As for, pitch mix or anything like that, he hasn't changed up too much from his success last season. He's not a guy that Savant traditionally likes. He doesn't get great extension. His peripherals aren't fantastic. And he's not a big fielding independent pitching guy if you're into that kind of statistic where that's only strikeouts, walks, and home runs, only things that the pitcher can control, an ERA mark for that. But outside of all that, Michael Lorenzen, his concrete results have been good, and I think the Rangers would be wise to trade him, much like they would be wise to also trade Kirby Yates. Kirby Yates is a guy that, in the late 2010s was in the discussion for best closer in the league, and then injuries befell him for a few years there. 2020, only 6 games pitched. 2022, only 9 games pitched. 2021, he didn't even appear in the major leagues. This year, he's looking as good as he did in 2019. For those who don't know, in 2019, Kirby Yates led the league in saves, 41 saves. He finished top 10 in Cy Young voting. He had a 1.19 ERA. This was legitimately the best closer in the National League, maybe in all of baseball that year. This year, his numbers are eerily similar. He's got a 1.24 ERA. That is incredible. That is 222% better than league average, according to ERA+. He was an all-star, much deserved. He's got a really nice whip, too, which if you're talking about relievers, especially high-leverage relievers, you want guys that don't have traffic on the base paths. That is Kirby Yates. 17 saves on the year for the Texas Rangers. He's been terrific, and best of all, he signed for the same amount of money as Michael Lorenzen. 1 year, $4.5 million. So $9 million of payroll on the Rangers' seismic payroll has gone to these two pitchers who have excelled for them amidst all the injuries that they have endured and stuff like that. So a lot of the talk, I think, will go to David Robertson because for years now he's been getting traded every year. It looks like he'll probably get traded again. For reference, that was a guy that they signed for $11.5 million. Not saying that Robertson didn't deserve that money. He absolutely did. He signed for $10 million the year before with the Mets. But Kirby Yates was something of a reclamation project for the Rangers that they've nurtured and turned into an even better asset than Robertson, and I think that's really cool. And I think they would be wise to trade him as well, although this is a tougher scenario because, you're talking about a team that literally won the World Series last year. I understand that. But Kirby Yates has been exceptional for them. So I think it's a hard proposition to ignore. Just for reference, let's do some splits here. Let's do a minimum of 30 innings pitched. The top 3 relievers in the American League in terms of ERA, Emmanuel Clase, who I think is the name that comes to mind for everybody when they think of great relievers, a 0.79 ERA. He's been incredible. Kirby Yates, not too far behind, 3rd in the American League, a 1.24 ERA, ahead of names that you'll recognize, ahead of Andres Munoz, the closer on the Mariners, who's also having a great year. Carlos Estevez, another interesting trade proposition there. Clay Holmes of the Yankees, who's been an all-star this year. These are all guys that Kirby Yates has been better than, will cost less than, and is available at the deadline. So something to think about for Rangers fans. Let's talk about teams that we definitely know are sellers, because I have 2 more names I want to mention left. One of them is Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham was a late signing. He was traded last year from my Mets. He was really fun to watch, surprisingly, when he came over. And for some reason, he couldn't find a team this year after, coming up with some big Diamondbacks playoff moments on their run. In the World Series, he had 8 hits, 3 doubles, and a home run. That's a guy you want on your roster. Not if you're the White Sox, though, because you're not competing for a World Series. In fact, you have less than 30 wins at this point in the season. You're 27-75. But if you want to talk about guys that were signed to be traded, this is maybe the best example you can come up with. Pham's been great. He's been their second best hitter, not having a spectacular season, but again, a corner outfield piece, which would be lucrative on the market. If you're talking the hierarchy of what gets traded, it's relievers at the bottom because there's so many, guys that are role players and then starting caliber players like corner outfield and infielders. And then, of course, starting rotation at the top. Tommy Pham, 12 doubles on the year. We like that. A 106 OPS plus, so he's been above league average. And when you look at this White Sox offense, it's tough to look at. Luis Robert Jr. is always their guy. And then there's no other hitter that's been above league average on their team, according to OPS plus, other than Tommy Pham at 36 years old. And you think of all the teams that are competing in wildcard spots right now, you're telling me that none of these teams could use a starting caliber corner outfielder? There's a lot of reunion capability here with teams like the Padres and the Mets and the Cardinals. And Tommy Pham had to hold out just to get his deal, which has only been worth $2.56 million from the White Sox. A 1-year deal, less than $3 million for an above league average outfielder. Another great value signing. It's tough that someone like Tommy Pham had to hold out to get that contract because he was so good last year. But still, I would bet anything that he'll get traded within the next 7 days. He could get traded by the time this podcast episode comes out. The last one, which took me by the most surprise, is another struggling American League team, which has done peculiar trade deadline things in the past, most recently last year when they bought in big time to supplement Shohei Ohtani. The Los Angeles Angels, who have been kind of lost at sea, have found a diamond in the rough with Kevin Pillar, who was a 2024 Chicago White Sox. He played 17 games there. They cut him, which if you get cut from the White Sox, it's tough to come back from that. But Kevin Pillar has, and he's come back in a big way. In 48 games for the Angels, very quietly, he has 15 extra base hits, a 129 OPS plus. He's been almost 30% better than league average, a 293 average, an 825 OPS. All those values soaring over his career highs at age 35. Congratulations to him. He just got his 10th year of service time as well. And I needed to highlight him because, one, he was a midseason signing. He got released from his prior team, and he's the cheapest option here. His contract right now is worth $609,000. He doesn't even break that $1 million mark made by guys like Derek Law and Jesse Winker. No, this is an under $1 million signing. This is an Angels team that has said they want to keep pieces close for the future. I don't super understand that. They've shopped guys like Taylor Ward. But this Kevin Pillar signing, I think, is the best thing they did all year long because they took a flyer on a guy that they didn't need to necessarily, and they turned it into a legitimate trade deadline asset, probably their best one besides Tyler Anderson, who's going to be a tougher deal to negotiate. He's 2-year deals. He's worth well over $10 million. You have someone like Kevin Pillar, who the risk reward there is almost not, you don't even have to worry really if you're a team that brings him on because he's not hemorrhaging your payroll in any way, and he's having this terrific magic final season out of nowhere. So happy for Kevin Pillar, who, by the way, at the prime age of, 35, still 84th percentile in sprint speed. Love that for him. Still fleet of foot, even in that old baseball age. He's the last signing I wanted to highlight. Unbelievable that he's having the season that he's having. So shout out him, shout out the Nationals, shout out the White Sox, shout out the Rangers. I hope you guys have a field day at the upcoming trade deadline, because if you don't, what are we doing? Why do we make these value signings if not to trade them at the trade deadline? So that'll do it for my first thing, talking about trade deadline, bang for your buck value options. I want to talk about a team next that is most certainly not selling at this year's deadline. And they've been selling for years because they've been in a tough window of play. The Kansas City Royals last night, they got their 56th win of the season. Last year, in total, over the full season, they had 56 wins. They have already matched their total from 2023. Regardless of where they finish, they will, I think, be the most improved team from year to year. And obviously, the cherry on top there would be making the playoffs, which Baseball Reference has them listed at a near 75% chance to do so. So rooting for you, Kansas City fans. And I wanted to take some time out to just kind of look at how they did it, because making this change from year to year is an incredibly difficult proposition for a team, especially with a team that has not displayed a crazy budget in the past, like the Kansas City Royals. Now, let's think of the obvious things first. The obvious things are Bobby Witt Jr. is playing like an MVP candidate. Even last year, he was still a great player. He was still a guy with a 117 OPS plus. He starkly improved his defense. He stole 49 bases, hit 30 home runs, but he's been so much better this year. He's been 50 points better in OPS plus. It's near 1,000 on his raw mark, 979 OPS, 10 triples, 27 doubles, 18 home runs, 22 stolen bases. These are video game numbers. He almost won the home run derby too. So obviously, yes, it helps to have a prospective MVP candidate on your team. It also helps to have a prospective AL Cy Young candidate on your team, and that's Seth Lugo out of nowhere, who's the best signing of the last offseason at 2 years and $30 million. He's pitching like a Cy Young. He leads the league in innings pitched, in ERA plus at 180, 80% better than league average. Games started. He just threw his first complete game. Leads the league in wins as well. He's having a terrific year. So, yeah, to start, when you're building a team, it helps to have an MVP and a Cy Young on your roster. But the biggest thing that has stood out to me about this year's Royals team is the stark improvement of guys that were on the roster last year and struggled. And a lot of this you can attribute to winning culture breeds winning players. If your team is playing well, that might prop you to play well as well. But I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. This is a Royals team that currently is top 5 in starting pitcher ERA, starting pitching WHIP, starting pitching hit per 9, and starting pitching home run per 9. So they're keeping the ball in the ballpark. They're rarely allowing hits, and they've got good managed run efficiency. But it goes beyond Seth Lugo. You obviously have Cole Reagans, who's been pitching well, Michael Wacha, who was brought in to stabilize the rotation. But I want to take a second to talk about Brady Singer. Brady Singer was a little bit of a victim of everyone's pick to break out fully in 2023. And last year, he made 29 starts. He had an ERA well above 5. His WHIP was 1.45, which is never where you want to be. And this year, he's turned into a legitimate number 2, number 3 option for the Royals. So I want to sit with you, and I want to figure out what changed. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see just how much his peripherals have jumped from year to year. I'm going to use the video player. Look at that. That is a sizable jump, even if a lot of the numbers still aren't favorable. And one of the things I like to look at on Baseball Savant are year-to-year changes. It's at the bottom of everyone's player page, and it shows you how much their percentages have changed from this year to last. The biggest thing that I noticed right off the bat when I'm looking at this for the first time, Brady Singer has had an 8.5% drop-off in hard hit percentage against. He's at 40.1%, which matches the value he had in 2022, which was his other great season where he had a 3.23 ERA. This year, he's made 20 starts with a 3 ERA solid. So he's gotten back to managing soft contact. When we look at his pitch mix, not a lot has changed either, except for the fact that he's throwing his four-seamer a lot more. His four-seam percentage has jumped from 0.2% to 13.2%. He's still a slider-sinker guy, throwing those pitches combined about 80% of the time, but he's established his fastball more, and I think that's helped him out a lot. He's not a guy that's going to blow you away with velocity. He tops out at 91.6 miles per hour on average with his four-seamer, but I think establishing a third pitch, one as basic as the four-seamer, which, the batting metrics against it are, what you'd expect of a four-seamer. If hitters are making contact, they're getting solid results. But it's more so the setup of his sinker and slider that has been greatly assisted by this third pitch. Last year, his slugging against on his slider was 397, so about 400. This year, it's 352, so it's dropped 50 points. Similar to his batting average, 241 last year, 194 this year. And that's made his slider his most efficient pitch, one of the better sliders in baseball at a +4 run value. His sinker has been great as well. So shout out Brady Singer. I want to highlight one player from each side of Royals ball that you may not be thinking of when you think of their stark improvement. Brady Singer was definitely the starting pitcher I wanted to shout out because I think a lot of the love goes to Lugo, it goes to Reagans, even Wacha before Brady Singer. Brady Singer's had a terrific year. In the offense, it's been mostly carried by Bobby Witt Jr. In fact, when you click back and forth on their Baseball Reference team page, the offense in terms of OPS plus kind of looks similar. It's Bobby Witt, a couple other guys, and then everyone else has been pretty much below league average, which makes me think, okay, why have the Royals been able to stay afloat so much? Vinny Pasquantino, we've been waiting for his big breakout. He's having a nice year. Michael Massey, a name you might not know, he's also having a nice year. But a lot of the other guys that were brought in, like Hunter Renfroe, like Adam Frazier, have not really performed. And instead, it has been the ageless wonder that is Salvador Perez that has just blown me away with how he's still doing this. I think I need to put this in proper context. Salvador Perez made his debut in 2011 at 21 years old. He hit .331 his first year in 39 games. This was a Royals team that was still far away from competing. What were you doing in 2011? In 2011, I was in middle school, I think. I was either in middle school or in my last year of elementary school, and it's been 13 years since that, and Salvador Perez is still great. He's still making all-star teams. He's still hitting 280 at age 34. And best of all is he's still catching, which is so incredible. So you think of the 2024 Royals, you always think of Bobby Witt Jr. first, but I don't think they're having this kind of season without the production they're getting out of Salvador Perez. I think we all kind of turned ahead when he hit 48 home runs in 2021 and thought, okay, what's up with that? Where is this coming from? And then he fell back down to earth the past 2 years, but now he's trending back towards that. He's on pace for 30 home runs this season. He's having his best OPS year since that 2021 season, and he's not showing any signs of slowing down at age 34. So I want to do again what I did with our prior guy in Brady Singer and just show you how much the peripherals change from year to year, 2023 to 2024. He was 17th percentile in batting run value. Now, 82nd percentile, and look at all of these hard hit metrics. He's above the 90th percentile in sweet spot, expected batting average, expected slugging, all the things you like. So, is he crushing a certain pitch more than usual? Not necessarily. Salvi likes to hit fastballs. He likes to swing. We all know that. His chase percentages are always high. But he's been pretty much run of the mill, when you look up and down these run values. His biggest change might be his hitting against changeups, but that's about it. He's been pretty much down to earth here. So let's check out his year-to-year changes. Let's see if there's been anything we can pick up on here. His barrel percentage is up 4.2%. It's at 13%, which is the most he's had since 2021. His exit velocity is up. His launch angle is up. But again, nothing super crazy. Let's check out his batting approach. He's swinging at first pitch strikes 3% more of the time. That's nothing insane. Here's what I found interesting. This is the most disciplined version of Salvi that we've seen in a while. His swing percentage, his whiff percentage is down nearly 4%. His strikeout percentage is down 4%. His swing percentage is down 2%. Is Salvi showing more plate discipline than ever? And that's what's the biggest change. Even in his great year in 2021, where he hit 48 home runs, he led the league in home runs, finished 7th in MVP voting. His on base that year was 316, which is above his career average of 300. But if you watch a lot of baseball, you know that's not really a super desirable mark. This year, his on base is 341. It's the third highest of his career. And the other two seasons above it are 2020, which is 37 games, and 2011, which was his rookie year, which is only 39 games. So in a full season of play, Salvador Perez is the most disciplined at the plate that he's ever been in his career. That was the biggest thing that I picked up on. His walk percentage is up 4% to 7.1%. It's no crazy value, but it's the highest on his baseball savant, easily. And right now, it's the highest of his career by 3%, which is a huge margin. His career average is 3.8% walks. And I know you're paying Salvi the big bucks to hit home runs and be that guy behind the plate, but adding this dimension to the game has made his pitch selection all the more better, and he's getting more crushable pitches, which is leading him down this path towards only his second 30 home run season of his career. He surged past it in 2021, but other than that, he's never had more than 27. So when you talk about big changes made amongst the Royals roster, and you want to impress your friends about, oh, well, the Royals are good this year because of Bobby Witt Jr. and Seth Lugo. Well, you can tell them. Brady Singer, he's changed up his pitch mix. He's established that third pitch. And Salvador Perez, he's not just swinging at anything anymore. In fact, he's become one of the most disciplined hitters on his own team. And he's showing the best plate discipline of his career at age 34. And you know what, man? If you're a Salvador Perez for the Hall of Fame kind of guy, which I personally am not, I can be swayed with, a few more good years from Salvador Perez. And the way that I think he does that is by changing his hitting approach to last longer and be more, efficient in a lineup where he doesn't need to be the big slug guy anymore. So shout out Salvi, still reinventing himself at age 34. I wanted to make sure I got that out there because it's something that I thought would honestly never happen. I thought this is the guy that Salvi is. This is, he swings big. His on base is going to be below 300, but if he hits 25 home runs and plays the whole season, that's considered a big victory. Instead, no. Now he's a guru of walks. He's already set his career high in walks. He needs one more. He's at 28. 28 was the most he had in 2021. The biggest difference here, 28 walks to 76 strikeouts this year, 28 walks to 170 strikeouts in his other career best walk season. Shout out Salvi. Excited to see what he does over a full calendar slate of MLB games. And shout out the Royals, having a terrific year. 56 wins. Let's get some more. All right. On to our last thing, which is just fun facts, which I love because now we can just throw some stuff at the wall and see what sticks and see what's the most interesting. And Dalton did a great job prepping this. George Springer hit his 58th career leadoff home run on Sunday. It's second only to Hall of Famer Rickey Henderson on baseball's all-time list for leadoff home runs. That's impressive. That is not the name I would have come up with when we're talking about career leadoff home runs. In fact, why don't we check out George Springer's career batting splits by position in lineup? Okay, interesting. We got some interesting numbers here. Batting fourth in his career, George Springer, 682 OPS. Not what you want. Batting first, where he's got the largest sample by far, an 836 OPS. He's actually been pretty good down the lineup as well. But yeah, you see that 202 home runs out of the leadoff spot. Not all of them were leadoff home runs, only 58 of them, but still 25% of your home runs batting first have been leadoff home runs. That's a hard thing to do. So shout out George Springer, who's put together quite the solid career there. Juan Yepez is back. I feel like we've been talking a lot about the Washington Nationals this episode, but he's back in the big leagues. He has a hit in every game he's played for Washington, 13 games. It's the longest streak to start or to begin a stint with a team since David Dahl's 16 games in Colorado in 2016. How about that? David Dahl made some headlines earlier in the year with his London home run against my Mets, but Juan Yepez is someone I wanted to talk about because he came up with the Cardinals, had that big playoff home run, and then fell back into the minor leagues. He was another guy that the Nats signed, and I was like, you know what? They're having a nice offseason. It took him a while to get the call, though. In AAA this year, he had 11 home runs and 800 OPS in 74 games. Finally got the call because Joey Meneses was struggling so much at the big league level, and he has seized the opportunity. He's got an OPS above 1,000 in 13 games for the Nationals. He's kind of helped, break them from becoming hard sellers with, how well he's hitting that lineup, which needed some offense. And now he's got a hitting streak. Let's get 3 more games. Let's break that record. Why not? Let's see if he can do it. The Nationals, of course, just swept Cincinnati, so that's why they're in the headlines. Last fun fact I want to shout out here, Brandon Nimmo. My guy. I love Brandon Nimmo. I think he's one of the most underrated players in baseball. He just tied his career high with 9 stolen bases. Now, that might not seem like a lot. We just talked about Jesse Winker, who had 3 stolen bases going into the year. He's already got 14 now. But he's yet to be caught this season. He could become just the 3rd Met to have 10 or more stolen bases without being caught over the age of 30 in franchise history. Now, I wanted to bring this up because I watch, of course, a lot of Mets baseball. I watch a lot of Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo is not a slow guy. Every year, he's been routinely above average in sprint speed. In fact, I want to take you back to 2021. So, I love this little tool that alters the year as it goes on for percentile rankings. 2021, Brandon Nimmo is 92nd percentile in sprint speed. The next year, he's 84th percentile. 2022. The next year, 66th. Still not bad. Still above average. This year, 66th as well, as you see at the bottom. So every year since 2021 that he's been healthy, he has been above league average in terms of how fast he can run. His stolen bases in this window, 5 stolen bases, 4 times caught. So 5 for 9, 55% efficiency, not good. 2022, he steals even less. He plays 60 more games, but he steals only 3 bases and gets caught twice. So 3 for 5, 60% efficiency, not good. Last year, 3 for 6, 50% efficiency, not good. This year, 9 stolen bases, no caught stealings. It's his career high. Back in 2018, he also stole 9, but he got caught 6 times. Could it just be a product of bigger bases and pickoff rules? Maybe. But I think at the ripe age of 31 years old, Brandon Nimmo has finally figured out the art of stealing bases, And I sure would love if he could crack 20 this year. Cracking 20 stolen bases is not going to be a big deal pretty much anymore for anyone. But for my Mets fandom, I would like to see him reach that potential as a power speed corner outfield threat. There's some other good fun facts here. Shout out to Dalton for prepping the sheet, and shout out to you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Jolly's Three Things, filling in for Jimmy. If you did, make sure you leave a like on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Talkin Baseball. If you're listening on podcast apps, leave us a review. And thank you, as always, to Workhouse Media and Dan Patrick for helping produce this wonderful show. I hope I get to do it again. This time next week, Jimmy will likely be back on the mic with some more interesting things for you guys to learn about and hear. But yeah, go trade deadline. Go Kansas City Royals, and go Brandon Nimmo never getting caught stealing again.